Dust covered everything in the forgotten corner of the Hall of Bonding. Rin had stopped caring about appearances somewhere around year 200. Now, at 387 years of waiting, he had perfected the art of looking completely unapproachable. His crimson scales, once polished to mirror brightness, now wore a coating of gray ash. The stumps where his wings used to be sat like broken monuments on his shoulders. He kept them visible on purpose. Let everyone see what war does to the mighty. The hall stretched out before him like a cathedral of broken dreams. Massive pillars held up a ceiling that opened to the purple sky of Ashura. Young dragons preened themselves on marble platforms, showing off their magnificent wings to potential partners who walked the ceremonial path. The aliens came from all corners of the Galactic Coalition, hoping to bond with a dragon and gain access to the ancient power these creatures commanded. Rin watched them parade past his dark corner, with contempt that had fermented into something close to hatred. A group of insectoid delegates clicked and buzzed as they admired a silver dragon who spread her wings wide. The hive people always chose the prettiest ones. They cared about appearances more than substance. Rin snorted, sending a small puff of smoke into the dusty air. A furry delegate from the northern systems jumped at the sound, then hurried away when he noticed where it came from. Good. Rin preferred it that way. Chancellor Voss, an old reptilian who had been overseeing these ceremonies for longer than most species had been spacefaring, walked past without his usual greeting. Even Voss had given up on him. Rin had rejected 43 potential partners over the centuries. He had insulted twice that many who never even made it close enough to attempt a bond. The Chancellor had called him stubborn. Rin called it having standards. The truth, buried deep where even his own mind rarely went, was simpler and more painful. His last partner had died in his arms while they fell from the sky together. Her name had been Kira, and she had been the fiercest warrior the Coalition had ever seen. The enemy had torn his wings off trying to separate them. It had not worked. They had crashed together, and she had died whispering that their bond was the greatest honor of her life. Rin had survived. He often wished he had not. The ceremony proceeded with mechanical efficiency. A warrior from the core worlds bonded with a blue dragon who could breathe ice. A scientist from the crystal systems found a smaller green dragon who specialized in healing. Rin closed his eyes and tried to ignore the joy radiating from the newly bonded pairs. It felt like salt in wounds that never healed. Then the humans arrived. Rin had heard about them, of course. Everyone had. The new species that had figured out faster than light travel only 60 years ago. The young race that asked too many questions and followed too few rules. The Coalition had been debating their membership application for a decade, unable to decide if humanity was brave or simply reckless. Most leaned toward reckless. They entered in a small group, only 5 of them. Most species sent dozens of candidates to these ceremonies. Humans apparently believed in efficiency or simply did not have many to spare. They wore matching gray uniforms that looked practical rather than ceremonial. Rin approved of that, at least. 4 of them moved with the confidence of diplomats and soldiers. The 5th walked differently. She paused to examine the architecture, stopped to sketch something in a small notebook, and seemed more interested in the hall itself than the dragons on display. Her hair was pulled back in a simple tail, brown with threads of early gray. She had the kind of face that had seen things and decided to keep going anyway. Rin recognized that expression. He saw it every time he looked at his reflection. The other humans found their dragons quickly. The soldiers gravitated toward warriors. The diplomat chose a silver-tongued creature who could speak 17 languages. Soon only the 5th human remained. She stood in the center of the hall, turning slowly, her eyes scanning every corner. When her gaze reached Rin's shadowed alcove, it stopped. She walked toward him. Not quickly, not with the eager energy of someone seeking power. She moved like someone following curiosity rather than ambition. Rin tensed. He had his rejection speech prepared, the same one he had used 43 times before. But she did not stop at the polite distance most people maintained. She came close enough that he could smell the strange scent humans carried, something like earth and determination. "You are the one without wings," she said. Not a question, not an expression of pity, just a statement of fact. "Brilliant observation," Rin replied, his voice rough from lack of use. "Most people lead with that. Very original." She smiled, and it was not the nervous smile of someone trying to appease a dangerous creature. It was the smile of someone who recognized sarcasm because they used it themselves. My name is Lena Cross. I study xenobiology, which means I spend my time figuring out how different species work. I have been staring at your species for the last hour, and I cannot figure out how you generate enough internal heat to breathe fire without cooking your own organs. Would you mind explaining it? Rin blinked. In 387 years, no one had asked him that question. They asked about his battle record. They asked about his bond capabilities. They asked in whispers about his missing wings. Not one had ever asked about biology. Internal heat chambers, he said slowly, separate from the main body, connected by insulated passages. Fascinating. And the fuel source? Chemical or something else? You really want to know about dragon anatomy? I really do. I have about 6 theories, and I need someone who actually lives with the system to tell me which one is right. Rin found himself explaining the complex process of dragon fire breathing. Lena asked questions that revealed a sharp mind and genuine interest. She sat down on the dusty floor without being invited, pulling out her notebook to sketch diagrams based on his descriptions. She did not flinch when he moved closer. She did not stare at his missing wings with pity or disgust. She treated him like a person worth talking to rather than a damaged weapon or a tragic figure. An hour passed, then 2. Chancellor Voss appeared at some point, looking shocked to find Rin engaged in conversation. The old reptilian opened his mouth to speak, then wisely closed it and walked away. So, Lena said eventually, closing her notebook, I should probably ask the formal question. Would you be willing to consider a bond with me? Why? Rin asked. The word came out harsher than he intended. I cannot fly. I cannot give you the power that others seek. I am broken goods, human. You are not broken, Lena said firmly. You are different. There is a distinction. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I lost my entire research team 3 years ago. We were exploring an unstable system. I made the call to go in. I was wrong. They died. I lived. Since then, everyone looks at me with pity or treats me like I might shatter at any moment. You are the first being in 3 years who has talked to me like I am still myself. That is not a reason to bond with a dragon. No, she agreed, but it is a reason to bond with you specifically. I do not want power. I do not need flight. I need a partner who understands what it means to keep going when everything says you should stop. Rin stared at her. Something in his chest, something he thought had died with Kira, began to warm. It felt dangerous. It felt like hope, and hope was the cruelest thing in the universe. I am not easy to work with, he warned. Good. Easy is boring. I will make your life difficult. My life is already difficult. At least with you, it might be interesting. Against every instinct, against 387 years of refusal, Rin felt himself nod. 1 trial period, he said. If it does not work, we part ways. No obligations. Lena extended her hand, a human gesture he had seen before. Deal. He touched her palm with the tip of his claw, and the world exploded into color and sensation. The bond, when it came, felt like falling and flying at the same time. He saw her memories. The explosion, the guilt, the determination to honor her dead by living well. She saw his, the war, the fall, the loneliness that had become his entire world. When they separated, both were breathing hard. Lena looked stunned. Rin felt terrified. That was intense, she whispered. That was the bond, Rin said. Are you sure about this, human? Lena stood up, dusting off her uniform. She looked at him with clear eyes that held no doubt. My name is Lena. Use it. And yes, I am sure. For the first time in nearly 4 centuries, the cranky wingless dragon felt something other than emptiness. It scared him more than any battle ever had. But Lena had already started walking toward the exit, clearly expecting him to follow. Rin, finding himself unable to resist, followed. Training grounds on Ashura looked like something from ancient warfare manuals. Stone circles marked combat zones where bonded pairs learned to move as one unit. Targets made from heat-resistant materials dotted the landscape. In the distance, dragons and their partners practiced aerial maneuvers, their forms dark against the purple sky. Rin led Lena to a circle far from the others, away from curious eyes and judging whispers. We start with mental synchronization, he said, settling his bulk onto the warm stone. The bond exists, but it is raw, untrained. You will hear my thoughts sometimes whether you want to or not. Already experiencing that, Lena replied, rubbing her temples. You think very loudly. Also, you are not nearly as grumpy as you pretend to be. Rin snorted flame in irritation, which only proved her point. Focus, close your eyes. Find the connection between us and follow it. They sat in silence while the wind howled across the training grounds. Lena struggled at first, her scientific mind trying to analyze what should be felt rather than understood. Rin felt her frustration building, tasted the sharpness of it through their link. He remembered his own struggles with Kira centuries ago. She had been impatient too, rushing forward when she should have waited. The memory brought pain, and the pain traveled down the bond before he could stop it. Lena's eyes opened. You loved her very much. Stay out of my memories, human. Lena. And you are the one who said we would hear each other's thoughts. Works both ways, Dragon. She had him there. Rin growled low in his throat but said nothing. They tried again. This time, when Lena found the bond, she did not push. She simply existed within it, letting the connection flow naturally. Rin felt her presence like sunlight breaking through clouds. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt right in a way that terrified him. Good, he admitted grudgingly. Now maintain that while moving. Stand up. They spent hours practicing basic coordination. When Rin moved left, Lena needed to anticipate it. When Lena needed fire support, Rin had to provide it before she asked. Other pairs flew overhead, their movements perfectly synchronized from years of practice. Rin and Lena stumbled through exercises that should have been simple. She tripped over his tail twice. He accidentally knocked her down when he turned too quickly. By midday, they were both frustrated and exhausted. This is impossible, Lena said, sitting hard on the ground. Every other pair makes it look easy. Every other pair has wings, Rin replied. We must find a different way. That requires time and patience. Patience is not my strong suit, I noticed. It is also not mine. We are spectacularly unsuited for each other. Lena laughed, surprising them both. Then why does the bond feel so strong? Rin had no answer for that. The bond between them had settled into place faster than any he had heard of, including his connection with Kira. It made no sense. Lena was stubborn, reckless, and asked far too many questions. He was bitter, difficult, and carried enough emotional baggage to fill a cargo ship. By all logic, they should have separated after the first day. But every morning, Lena showed up to training. Every evening, they practiced synchronization until both were mentally exhausted. Slowly, painfully, they began to move as one unit. Rin learned to account for Lena's impulsive decisions. Lena learned to trust Rin's combat experience. The bond deepened, and with it came something neither expected: friendship. 3 weeks into training, Chancellor Voss summoned them to the council chambers. The room was filled with representatives from across the coalition. Lena recognized the human delegation sitting in a corner looking nervous. A large insectoid stood at the center, mandibles clicking in what Lena's translator interpreted as contempt. Prelate Nix, Rin whispered through their bond. Leader of the Hive Worlds. He has opposed human membership from the beginning. Prelate Nix's multifaceted eyes focused on Lena. The council has questions regarding the bond between the human and the damaged dragon. Such an unusual pairing requires scrutiny. Damaged? Lena spoke before Rin could stop her. He is not damaged. He is experienced. He lacks wings. This is a fundamental deficiency in dragonkind. And you lack creativity. That seems like a bigger problem. The chamber went silent. Several council members made sounds that might have been shock or approval. Chancellor Voss covered what might have been a smile. Prelate Nix's antennae vibrated with anger. This disrespect proves my point about humanity. They are too unpredictable, too aggressive, too unwilling to follow established protocols. Protocols, Lena said, standing up, that have apparently made it acceptable to insult beings who have served this coalition for centuries. Rin fought in the War of the Shattered Moons. He lost his wings defending his partner and completing a mission that saved an entire planet. That is not damage. That is sacrifice. Rin felt warmth spread through their bond. No one had defended him like this in longer than he could remember. Most people simply accepted his condition as tragic fate. Lena saw it differently, and she made others see it differently too. Chancellor Voss raised a clawed hand for silence. Prelate Nix raises a valid concern, though perhaps less diplomatically than necessary. The bond between Lena Cross and Rin is unusual. To prove its strength and to satisfy the Council's questions about human suitability for coalition membership, I propose they undergo the trial of unity. Murmurs filled the chamber. Lena felt Rin tense beside her. Through their bond, she caught images of other pairs attempting the trial, saw the dangers involved. The trial is meant for flying pairs, Rin said quietly. Then modify it for ground-based completion, Chancellor Voss replied. If they succeed, the Council will have proof that humanity can adapt and persevere. It will also demonstrate that bonds are built on more than physical perfection. And when they fail? Prelate Nix asked. If they fail, Voss said carefully, then perhaps the questions about both the human application and unusual bonding protocols will be answered as well. Lena understood the game being played. This was politics wrapped in tradition. Success would help humanity's cause. Failure would give Prelate Nix ammunition to reject human membership. But beyond politics, she heard the unspoken challenge. Prove that you belong together. We accept, she said. Rin looked at her in shock. Lena, you do not understand what you just agreed to. I understand that everyone in this room expects us to fail. I have been exceeding low expectations my entire career. Might as well continue the trend. That night, Rin showed her memories of the trial through their bond. 20 pairs would enter the Scorched Vale, a volcanic wasteland filled with predators and environmental hazards. The goal was to reach the center and retrieve an ancient artifact, then return alive. Most pairs completed it in 3 days using aerial routes. Ground-based completion had never been attempted because it had never been necessary. Dragons had wings. That was simply how things were. We need a strategy, Lena said, studying maps of the Vale. Direct routes are for flyers. We need to think differently. Different how? I am a xenobiologist. I study how life adapts to extreme environments. The Vale is extreme, but life exists there. Where life exists, there are paths, hidden ones that flying dragons would never notice because they do not need them. Rin felt something like hope stirring. You want to use the Vale itself as our advantage. Exactly, and we have something no other pair has. What is that? 387 years of your combat experience combined with human stubbornness. They think those are weaknesses. Let's prove them wrong. They spent the next week preparing. Lena researched the Vale's ecosystem obsessively. Rin taught her combat techniques that did not rely on aerial superiority. They practiced moving through tight spaces, using fire breath for more than just attacks, coordinating without verbal communication since the bond allowed for something better. The other human delegates visited the night before the trial. They looked worried. You do not have to do this, the lead diplomat said. We can withdraw the application and try again later. Running away will not help humanity's reputation, Lena replied. Besides, Rin and I have a good chance. The diplomat glanced at the wingless dragon and clearly thought otherwise. But he simply nodded. Good luck. After they left, Rin spoke quietly. They do not believe in us. Most people do not believe in anything until it is proven. We will prove it. You have remarkable confidence for someone about to enter one of the most dangerous locations on this planet. I have a remarkable partner, Lena said simply. That makes all the difference. Through their bond, Rin felt the truth of her words. She genuinely believed in them, in him. It was a gift he had not received in centuries, and he found himself determined not to waste it. The trial would begin at dawn. Neither of them slept much that night. Instead, they sat together in comfortable silence, their minds linked, sharing strength and certainty. Whatever came next, they would face it together. For a cranky dragon and a stubborn human, that seemed like enough. Dawn broke red over the Scorched Vale. Lena stood at the entrance with 19 other bonded pairs, feeling heat radiate from the volcanic landscape ahead. The ground was black stone, cracked and glowing with veins of molten rock. Ash fell like snow, never settling, always drifting on superheated winds. In the distance, geysers of flame erupted at random intervals. This was a place designed to test the absolute limits of bonded pairs. Rin crouched beside her, his crimson scales absorbing the heat without complaint. Through their bond, Lena felt his calm focus. He had been to worse places. She tried to match his composure and mostly succeeded. The rules are simple, Chancellor Voss announced to the assembled pairs. Reach the center of the Vale. Retrieve an artifact from the Temple of Trials. Return here. Time does not matter. Survival does. If you are in mortal danger, activate your emergency beacon. You will be disqualified but alive. There is no shame in choosing life over glory. Prelate Nix stood beside the Chancellor, his dragon sky preening silver wings that caught the red light beautifully. "Some pairs," the prelate said loudly, "have advantages others lack. Remember that when evaluating results." The jab was obvious. Lena felt Rin's anger spike through their bond. She sent calming thoughts back. Getting angry would not help them survive. A horn sounded. The trial began. Immediately, 18 pairs took to the air. Wings spread wide as dragons carried their partners up and over the most dangerous terrain. Within seconds, they were distant shapes against the ash-filled sky. Only Lena and Rin remained on the ground. "Everyone expected that," Lena said. "Let them think they have already won. We have our own route." She pulled out a small device, one she had built from salvaged equipment. It detected thermal variations in the rock, showing where underground passages might exist. Rin had been skeptical when she first proposed the idea. Now, watching the device light up with potential paths, he felt impressed despite himself. "Northeast," Lena said. "There is a cooling pattern that suggests an old lava tube. If it goes deep enough, we can avoid the surface heat." They moved quickly. Rin's claws found purchase on the treacherous stone. Lena rode on his back, guiding them with the scanner and her knowledge of geological formations. They found the lava tube entrance hidden behind a curtain of volcanic gas. Rin breathed a controlled burst of flame to clear the air, and they descended into darkness. The tube stretched for miles, a natural tunnel carved by ancient lava flows. Lena used chemical lights to see. Rin navigated by heat sense, following the cooler paths that led deeper. They moved in silence, minds linked, communicating faster than words allowed. When Lena spotted a side passage, Rin was already turning toward it. When Rin sensed danger ahead, Lena had a solution ready before he finished thinking about the problem. Hours passed. They emerged from the tubes into a canyon that aerial maps had not shown. Creatures lived here, things adapted to the extreme heat. Six-legged reptiles with stone-like skin hunted in packs. Lena recognized them from her research. Ash stalkers, ambush predators that used the floating ash as cover. "We need to move fast," she whispered. "They hunt anything that shows weakness, but the canyon was the only route forward." The walls were too high to climb, too smooth for Rin to scale. They had no choice but to run. Rin lowered his body and Lena held tight to his neck ridges. They sprinted down the canyon floor as ash stalkers materialized from the drifting clouds of gray. Rin breathed fire in controlled bursts, creating walls of flame that kept the pack at bay. Lena used her scanner to find the weaknesses in the canyon walls, spotting a narrow pass that would force the predators to attack in smaller numbers. They reached it just as the main pack closed in. Rin turned, using his bulk to block the entrance while Lena threw chemical explosives she had prepared specifically for this scenario. The explosions triggered a rock slide. The pass filled with debris, cutting them off from the pursuing predators, but it also cut them off from retreat. They could only go forward now. "That was closer than I would have liked," Rin said. "Agreed. But we are past the worst of the predator zone. From here, it should be mostly environmental hazards." She spoke too soon. As they climbed out of the canyon, Lena heard a sound that made her blood freeze. Overhead, Sky the silver dragon circled, Prelate Nyx on her back. The dragon's eyes fixed on them with clear intent. "Coincidence?" Lena asked through the bond. "Unlikely," Rin replied. "Sky is on the fastest aerial route. For her to be here means she deviated from the optimal path." Sky dove. Rin barely had time to throw himself sideways as the silver dragon raked claws across the stone where they had been standing. Rock exploded into fragments. Lena felt pain lance through their bond as a sharp piece caught Rin's shoulder. "This is attempted murder," Lena shouted. "Welcome to coalition politics," Rin growled. "Hold tight." He ran, weaving between rock formations as Sky pursued from above. The silver dragon had every advantage. She was faster, could attack from any angle, and had the cooperation of her bonded partner who clearly wanted them eliminated. But Rin had experience and Lena had ideas. "The geysers," she said quickly. "They erupt in patterns. If we time it right," she did not need to finish. Rin understood instantly through their bond. He changed direction, heading straight for a field of volcanic vents. Lena watched her scanner, counting seconds, calculating pressure buildup. Sky followed, confident in her aerial superiority. "Now," Lena said. 3, 2, 1 now." Rin dodged left just as a massive geyser of superheated gas erupted directly in Sky's path. The silver dragon shrieked and veered away, wings singed by the blast. Prelate Nyx clung desperately to her back, his earlier confidence replaced by fear. They fled back toward safer airspace, but the damage was done. Rin's shoulder wound bled freely, and Lena could feel his strength fading through their bond. They still had miles to go to reach the temple, and now Rin was injured. "We should activate the beacon," Rin said quietly. "I cannot make it to the center like this." "No," Lena said firmly. She dismounted and examined the wound. It was deep but clean. She had medical supplies, basic ones, but they would have to do. As she worked sealing the wound with emergency foam, she felt an idea forming. "The bond," she said. "It connects us mentally, but connection means more than just thoughts. Kira shared her warrior skills with you, right? You could feel her techniques as if they were your own." "Yes, but that is passive. A side effect of deep bonding. What if we make it active? What if I share more than just thoughts?" Rin understood what she was proposing. "Lena, no. Sharing life force through a bond is dangerous. It could kill you. It could also save both of us. You have the strength and experience. I have energy you need. Let me give it to you. This is insane. Insanity seems to work for us." Before he could protest further, Lena closed her eyes and focused on their bond. She found the connection that linked them, the thread of consciousness that made them partners. Instead of just receiving from it, she pushed into it. She offered her strength, her vitality, her stubborn refusal to quit. It felt like pouring water from one container to another, except the containers were their souls. Pain hit her immediately. Sharing life force was not meant to be done consciously. Every nerve in her body screamed protest, but she could feel Rin's wound beginning to heal, could sense his strength returning. She pushed harder, giving more until darkness crept at the edges of her vision. Rin felt what she was doing and tried to pull away, but Lena held the connection firm. "Let me do this," she whispered. "Trust me," so he did. He accepted her gift, feeling his injury seal and his energy return. When Lena finally collapsed, he caught her gently. Through their bond, he could feel her life force dangerously low but stable. She had given him exactly enough while keeping enough for herself. It was the most precise and selfless act of bonding he had ever witnessed. "You foolish, brave, impossible human," he said softly. She smiled weakly. "Did it work?" "It worked. But you need rest, no time. We finish this together." With Lena barely conscious on his back, Rin pressed forward. His shoulder was healed. His strength had returned. More than that, something in their bond had changed. It was deeper now, stronger, forged by her willingness to sacrifice herself for him. He felt her presence in his mind like a second heartbeat. They reached the Temple of Trials as the second day dawned. It was a simple structure, ancient stone carved with symbols from dragon history. Inside, artifacts floated on pedestals of light. Other pairs had already claimed most of them. Rin saw the standard trial markers, glowing orbs that proved completion, but Lena, despite her exhaustion, was staring at something else. In the deepest part of the temple, nearly hidden in shadow, a different kind of light pulsed. It was red and gold, the colors of sunset and fire. "No one else seemed to see it. That one," she whispered. "Get that one." Rin approached it carefully. The artifact was a smooth stone, warm to the touch, with light swirling beneath its surface. The moment his claw made contact, knowledge flooded his mind. This was the Heartstone, a relic from the first days of dragon bonding. It had not been found in over 1,000 years, because it only revealed itself to pairs with the truest bond. The stone accepted them. Its light grew brighter, and suddenly Rin understood. This was why their bond felt so strong. This was why Lena had been able to share her life force. They were not just partners. They were something rarer, something the ancient texts called soul-bonded. Two beings who fit together so perfectly that they became something greater than either could be alone. With the Heartstone secured, they began the journey back. It should have been easier going out than coming in. It was not. Rin was strong again, but Lena needed time to recover her strength. They moved slowly, carefully, taking the safest routes even though it meant more time in the Vale. They emerged on the 4th day, long after the other pairs had finished. Everyone expected them to be disqualified or dead. Instead, they walked out of the Vale together, covered in ash and exhaustion, carrying the Heartstone. Chancellor Voss stared at the artifact in shock. "Impossible. The Heartstone has not chosen anyone in 1,237 years," Rin finished. "I remember. I was young then." Prelate Nick said nothing. His attack had failed, and now the wingless dragon and his human partner carried proof of the strongest bond seen in over a millennium. Any argument about their suitability had just been destroyed by ancient magic older than most civilizations. Lena slid from Rin's back and stood on shaky legs. We completed the trial. Does humanity pass your test? Voss looked at the other council members. Slowly, one by one, they nodded. Even some who had opposed human membership seemed impressed by what they had witnessed. The trial is complete, Voss declared. The bond is proven, but I suspect this is only the beginning of your story. He was more right than he knew. The heartstone pulsed in Rin's claws, warm and alive. Through their bond, both Lena and Rin felt it whispering secrets, showing them visions of things that should not be possible. Ancient wars, sleeping threats, and a choice that would soon have to be made. But that was for later. Now they simply needed rest, food, and time to process what they had survived. They had entered the Scorched Vale as partners trying to prove themselves. They emerged as something far more rare and precious. True equals bonded by choice, sacrifice, and absolute trust. The heartstone sat on a cushion in Lena's quarters, glowing softly in the darkness. Neither she nor Rin had been able to sleep since returning from the Vale. The stone called to them through their bond, insistent and patient at the same time. It wanted to show them something. Lena finally gave in and touched it with her fingertips. Reality dissolved. She stood in a world that no longer existed, watching events from millions of years in the past. Beings of pure energy moved through massive structures that made modern cities look like children's toys. These were the predecessors, the civilization that had come before all current galactic life. They were beautiful and terrible, creatures who had mastered reality itself. But they were also arrogant. They created weapons from the genetic material of primitive species, crafting dragons as tools of war. Lena watched as early dragons fought and died at their creators' commands, slaves with no will of their own. The sight made her sick. Then something changed. One dragon refused a command. It was a small act of defiance, quickly punished, but it sparked something. Other dragons began to resist. The predecessors tried to destroy their creations, but they had made the dragons too well, too strong, too intelligent. The dragons learned, adapted, and eventually rebelled. The war that followed nearly destroyed the galaxy. Lena saw planets torn apart, stars extinguished, entire systems rendered lifeless. The dragons fought not just for freedom, but for the right of younger species to exist without being enslaved. They found allies among the primitive civilizations the predecessors had oppressed. In the end, the predecessors lost, but they did not die. Lena watched as they fled into deep space, into the void between galaxies, taking with them technology that could unmake reality. They went dormant, waiting, their vast machines powered down but still functional, waiting for what the vision did not show until now. The final image made Lena's blood turn cold. A human probe, sent from Earth decades ago, had passed through the region where the predecessors slept. Its signal, meant to announce humanity's presence to any listening intelligence, had done exactly that. The predecessors were waking up. Lena gasped and pulled away from the stone. Rin, who had been experiencing the same vision through their bond, looked equally shaken. That signal was sent 40 years ago, Lena said. Light speed plus their reaction time. They could arrive any day, Rin finished. We need to tell the council, but telling the council proved harder than expected. The emergency session Lena requested was attended by skeptical representatives who still saw humanity as the newcomer species with ideas above their station. When Lena tried to explain what the Heartstone had shown them, Prelate Nix interrupted immediately. The human expects us to believe in ancient prophecies and mystical visions. How convenient that these visions give her species importance by making them the center of a galactic crisis. It is not a vision, Lena argued. The Heartstone stores historical records. What we saw actually happened, so you claim. Yet only you and your dragon can verify this. No one else has accessed the stone. How do we know you are not fabricating this threat? Chancellor Voss raised a hand for calm. The Heartstone is real. Its properties are documented in ancient texts. If it chose to show them something, we should at least investigate. Investigate what? Another council member asked. She speaks of threats from millions of years ago. Even if the predecessors existed, they are long dead. Dormant, Rin corrected. Not dead. There is a difference. I will not commit coalition resources to chasing ghost stories, Prelate Nix declared. Humanity has been a member for mere weeks, and already they manufacture crises that require military response. I call for a vote to ignore this claim and focus on real problems. The vote went against them. Only a handful of council members, including Voss, believed their warning. The others dismissed it as inexperience or, worse, a calculated attempt by humanity to gain influence. Lena and Rin left the chamber in frustration. "They will not listen until it is too late," Rin said. "Then we make them listen. We find proof they cannot ignore." But how to prove something that existed in the void between galaxies? Lena spent sleepless nights analyzing sensor data, looking for any anomaly that might indicate movement from deep space. Rin reached out to old contacts, dragons who had survived from the ancient wars, asking if they remembered anything about the predecessor's departure. One old dragon, a female named Ash whose scales had faded to gray with age, remembered stories passed down through generations. They fled beyond the edge, as she told Rin, to the places where light cannot reach. My great-great ancestor said they left machines, watchers that would wake them if certain conditions were met. A signal from a primitive species achieving faster than light travel was one such condition. Humanity achieved that 60 years ago, Rin said. Then you have less time than you think. The machines do not wake their masters quickly. They analyze. They prepare. But once they begin, nothing stops them. Armed with this information, Lena tried again to convince the council. Again, she was dismissed. Prelate Nix accused her of using ancient dragon folklore to spread fear. Other representatives agreed. Humanity's reputation, already shaky, was beginning to suffer from her paranoid warnings. Then the probe arrived. It appeared at the edge of the Ashoran system without warning. No ship, no engine signature, just sudden existence where nothing had been before. It was a perfect sphere of dark material that absorbed all sensor scans. Defense platforms fired on it automatically. The weapons passed through as if the sphere was not truly there. The probe ignored all attempts at communication. It simply moved through the system, scanning, cataloging, measuring everything it encountered. When it reached Ashura itself, it paused above the planet for exactly 1 hour. Then it vanished the same way it had arrived. Emergency council sessions were called. Panic spread through the coalition. No one had technology that could do what that probe had done. No current civilization, at least. Lena stood before the council again, this time with their full attention. That was a predecessor probe. It was verifying that intelligent life still exists in the galaxy. Now it will report back to the main fleet. "How long do we have?" Voss asked quietly. "Based on the Vision's timeline? Weeks, maybe less. And how do we fight something that can ignore our weapons?" "The dragons defeated them once before," Rin said. "But they had help. They had the defense network, a system built during the war using captured predecessor technology. If we can activate it..." "That network has been dead for millions of years," Prelate Nix said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. The probe had shaken him badly. "Not dead," Lena corrected. "Dormant. Like the predecessors themselves. The Heartstone can wake it, but only through a bonded pair with strong enough connection." "You," Voss said. It was not a question. "Us," Lena confirmed. "But there is a cost. The ritual requires one partner to merge their consciousness completely with the other, giving up individual identity to create a single being powerful enough to control the network." Silence filled the chamber. Everyone understood what she was saying. Someone would have to die, in a sense, to save the galaxy. Their consciousness would continue within their partner, but as a merged being rather than a separate person. "I volunteer," Rin said immediately. "No," Lena replied just as quickly. "You have lived for centuries. You deserve to live fully. I will merge with you." "Absolutely not. You are young. You have decades ahead. I have already lived longer than most dragons." "The choice is obvious." "The choice is mine to make," Lena said firmly. "I will not let you sacrifice yourself." They argued, their voices rising until Voss interrupted. "Perhaps there is another way. The ancient texts mention a perfect balance, where neither partner sacrifices but both change. It has never been achieved because it requires absolute equality of will and strength. But if any pair could do it..." He looked at them meaningfully. The Heartstone pulsed in response, as if agreeing. "We need time to prepare," Lena said. "Time to study the ritual. Time to find the Temple of First Flight where the network can be activated." "Time we may not have," Voss replied. "But we will give you what we can. The Council authorizes your journey. Take whatever resources you need." As they left the chamber, Lena felt the weight of what they had agreed to. They were going to attempt something that had never been done, facing an enemy that had nearly destroyed the galaxy once before. Through their bond, She felt Rin's certainty and fear mixing together. "We can do this," she said, trying to convince herself as much as him. "Together," Rin agreed. "Always together." But that night, as the Heartstone showed them more visions of the coming fleet, both wondered if together would be enough. The predecessors were not just coming. They were coming in force, and they remembered what the dragons had done to them millions of years ago. This would not be a war of conquest. It would be a war of extermination. Somewhere in the void between galaxies, massive ships powered up systems that had slept for longer than most species had existed. The predecessors were returning, and they were not interested in mercy or negotiation. They would cleanse the galaxy of the young races that had dared to exist in their absence. Lena and Rin had weeks at most to master a ritual that had never been successfully completed, activate a defense network that had been dormant for millions of years, and convince a fractured coalition to stand united against a threat most still did not believe existed. The cranky old dragon and the stubborn human woman had faced impossible odds before, but this time failure would mean more than personal defeat. It would mean the end of everything. The Temple of First Flight stood at the highest peak of Ashura, a place where the air was thin and the wind never stopped howling. Ancient stones carved with dragon script formed a circle around a central platform. This was where the first bonds had been formed, where dragons had learned to share their power with other species in the fight against the predecessors. Lena stood at the edge of the platform, studying the ritual instructions the Heartstone had provided. "It requires complete surrender," she read aloud. "Both partners must open their minds fully, holding nothing back, accepting the other completely. Any hesitation, any doubt will cause the ritual to fail." Rin paced around the circle, his claws clicking on ancient stone. Failure means death. The backlash of interrupted merging would destroy both our minds. Then we do not fail. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. Lena turned to face him. We trust each other. We have proven that. This is just trust taken to its ultimate conclusion. Through their bond, Rin felt her certainty, but underneath it lurked fear. She was terrified of losing herself, of ceasing to exist as an individual. He shared that fear. They had both spent their lives being stubbornly independent. The idea of giving that up even to save the galaxy went against every instinct. A message arrived from Chancellor Voss. The predecessor fleet had been detected at the galaxy's edge, moving faster than any ship in the Coalition's database. 3 weeks. That was how long they had before the enemy reached inhabited systems. Unless the defense network activated, those systems would be helpless. "We need to do this now," Lena said. "No more delays." But before they could begin, Prelate Nix arrived with a squad of Hive soldiers. His dragon sky landed heavily on the temple approach, wings stirring up dust and small stones. "I cannot let you proceed," the prelate announced. "The council has reconsidered. Activating an ancient weapons network is too dangerous. We do not fully understand what it might do." "You saw the probe," Lena said. "You know what is coming. I know that humanity's recklessness summoned this threat. Now you want to activate unknown technology that could be equally dangerous. The solution could be worse than the problem." Rin stepped forward, placing himself between Nix and Lena. "You tried to kill us in the Scorched Veil. Your concern for safety rings hollow." Nix's antennae twitched with anger. "That was regrettable but necessary. Humanity's influence must be limited. This ritual would make you the most powerful being in the galaxy. We cannot allow that." "This is not about power," Lena said. "This is about survival. So you claim. I see a human grasping for importance by manufacturing a crisis and positioning yourself as the only solution. The Hive will not stand for it." The soldiers raised weapons. Voss had sent a small security force to protect Lena and Rin during the ritual, but they were outnumbered. Sky spread her wings in a threat display. Battle seemed inevitable. Then something unexpected happened. Other dragons arrived. Ash, the old female who had told Rin about the ancient stories, landed near the temple with her own bonded partner. 2 more dragons followed, then 5, then a dozen. Young and old, they came to stand with the wingless dragon and his human partner. "The Hive does not speak for the dragons," Ash said, her voice carrying despite her age. "We remember the stories our ancestors passed down. We know the truth of the predecessors. If Rin and Lena are willing to make this sacrifice, we will not let you stop them." Prelate Nix realized he was outmatched. The dragons outnumbered his forces, and even Sky looked uncertain about fighting so many of her own kind. He withdrew, but not before issuing a final warning. When this fails, humanity will be expelled from the coalition, and when the real threat comes, we will face it with strength and unity, not desperate mysticism. He departed, taking his soldiers with him. But the damage was done. Doubt had taken root in Lena's mind. What if Nyx was right? What if activating the network made things worse? What if she was being arrogant? Thinking she could master ancient technology that even the predecessor's own creations had barely understood. Rin felt her doubt through the bond. Second thoughts?
Fourth or fifth thoughts by now, Lena admitted.
But we are out of time and options. The other dragons formed a protective circle around the temple. They would guard the ritual and ensure no more interruptions. Ash approached Lena directly, her ancient eyes showing wisdom earned through centuries. Child, you fear losing yourself. This is natural. But understand that change is not death. You will not cease to exist. You will become something new, something greater. Trust the bond. Trust your partner. Trust yourself. The words helped a little. Lena took her position at the center of the platform. Rin settled across from her, their eyes meeting. The heartstone floated between them, glowing with power that had waited millions of years to be used again. No matter what happens, Rin said quietly, I want you to know that these months with you have been the happiest I have experienced in nearly 4 centuries. Same, Lena replied. You are the grumpy, difficult, impossible best thing that ever happened to me. I am still grumpy. I would not have you any other way. They placed their hands and claws on the heartstone simultaneously. Power flooded through them and the ritual began. Lena felt her consciousness expanding, stretching out to encompass Rin's vast mind. She touched memories centuries old, experienced wars she had only read about, felt loss and love from before humanity had even developed agriculture. It was overwhelming, too much. She started to pull back, to retreat into the safety of her own limited perspective. But Rin was there, steadying her. Through the bond, he showed her that he was experiencing the same terror. Her memories seemed just as overwhelming to him. Her relatively short life was packed with intensity and change that his centuries could not match. They were both drowning in each other. Then Lena remembered what Ash had said. Change is not death. She stopped fighting. She let Rin in completely, holding nothing back. She showed him her childhood fears, her adult failures, her secret dreams she had never shared with anyone. She gave him everything. Rin did the same. He surrendered his carefully maintained emotional walls, the barriers he had built after Kira's death. He let Lena see the raw pain he carried, the guilt over surviving when his partner had not, the loneliness that had defined centuries of existence. He held nothing back. And in that moment of complete vulnerability, something miraculous happened. They did not merge into one being. Instead, they found balance. Their consciousnesses remained separate but intertwined, 2 distinct voices harmonizing into a perfect chord. Lena was still Lena. Rin was still Rin. But they were also something more. The defense network woke. Lena felt it spread across the galaxy like neural pathways in a vast brain. Ancient weapons platforms powered up. Dormant satellites began transmitting. Hidden bases built millions of years ago came online, and at the center of it all, she and Rin existed as the network's heart and mind. But the strain was incredible. The network was vast beyond comprehension, and managing it required concentration that pushed both of them to their absolute limits. Worse, they could feel something happening to Rin's physical form. The energy flowing through their bond was changing him. His body began to glow. Light leaked from between his scales, especially from the stumps where his wings had been. Pain shot through their shared consciousness as new structures began forming. Not physical wings made of bone and membrane, but something else. Something impossible. Energy condensed into wing shapes. Pure light given form and substance. They were not living tissue, but somehow they were part of him. Extensions of will and power made manifest. The stumps were gone, replaced by wings that glowed like captured starlight. Rin spread these new wings experimentally. They felt strange, neither fully physical nor completely energy. But when he tried to lift himself, they worked. Better than his old wings ever had. These could carry him through space itself, unaffected by atmosphere or gravity. I can fly again, he whispered, his voice filled with wonder and disbelief. But Lena barely heard him. She was watching through the network as the predecessor fleet entered the outer systems. Dozens of massive ships, each one larger than most cities. They moved with terrible purpose toward populated worlds. The first attacks would come within hours. "We need to coordinate the defense," Lena said. "The network can target the fleet, but we need other bonded pairs to add their strength. And we need the coalition fleets in position." She reached out through the network, touching the minds of every bonded dragon in the galaxy. Most felt her presence and responded with confusion or fear. A few understood and opened themselves to the connection. Their combined power flowed into the network, making it stronger. Chancellor Voss received her message and began mobilizing coalition forces. Even Prelate Nix, faced with the undeniable reality of the predecessor fleet, agreed to commit Hive military resources. For the first time in the coalition's history, every species prepared to fight together against a common enemy. But Lena could see through the network that it would not be enough. The predecessors were too powerful. Their technology was too advanced. The defense network was ancient and had been dormant too long. Many of its weapons were failing. Many of its systems were running far below optimal capacity. They were going to lose. Through their bond, Rin felt her despair. He shared it but refused to accept it. "We have survived everything else. We will survive this." "How?" "They outnumber us. They outgun us. Even with the network and every ship in the coalition, we cannot win a straight fight." "Then we do not fight straight. You are human. I am a dragon. Between us, we have never followed the expected path." Despite everything, Lena smiled. He was right. They had succeeded before by thinking differently, by using advantages others dismissed or overlooked. The predecessors expected a conventional battle. That was the weakness they could exploit. Lena began studying the predecessor fleet through the network sensors, analyzing their patterns. Rin added his centuries of combat experience. Together, they started to see something the individual analyses had missed. The predecessors moved in perfect formation. Their attacks followed mathematical precision. Their tactics were flawless by any standard definition, but they were also predictable. Millions of years dormant had left them locked into old patterns. They could not adapt because they expected no species to have advanced enough to require adaptation. "They think we are still primitive," Lena realized. "They expect us to be the same species they left behind millions of years ago." "Then let us show them how wrong they are," Rin said. Through the network, Lena began sharing tactical information with every coalition ship and bonded pair. Not orders, but suggestions. Ideas based on human unpredictability and dragon ferocity. She taught ancient defense systems to think creatively, rather than following programmed responses. Chaos, she realized, was humanity's gift. The ability to adapt, improvise, and try insane things that had no right to work. And dragons understood instinct over programming, following what felt right rather than what logic dictated. Combined, they might have a chance. The predecessor fleet reached the first inhabited system, just as the sun set on Ashura. The battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and at its center stood a cranky old dragon with wings of starlight and a stubborn human woman who refused to let the universe end. They were ready. They were terrified, but they were together, and that made all the difference. The first predecessor ship entered the Tyrian system and immediately began bombardment. Lena watched through the network as energy weapons capable of cracking planets carved through space toward inhabited worlds. The defense satellites she had activated responded, but their fire was weak after millions of years of dormancy. It would not be enough. Then the coalition fleet arrived. Ships from dozens of species, coordinated for the first time in galactic history, opened fire in a synchronized attack. The predecessor ship's shields absorbed the damage without visible effort. It continued its bombardment as if the coalition fleet was not even there. "They are not taking us seriously," Rin said through their shared consciousness. "They see us as insects." "Then we sting like insects," Lena replied. "Swarm tactics. Individual ships cannot hurt them, but concentrated fire on specific points might." She sent the strategy through the network to every coalition captain. Human vessels moved first, their commanders understanding instinctively what she wanted. They focused fire on a single point of the predecessor ship's shield. Slowly, other species followed the example, dozens of ships hitting the exact same location. The shield flickered. Just for a moment, but it flickered. The predecessor ship adjusted its energy distribution to compensate. In doing so, it weakened defenses elsewhere. Lena spotted the opening and redirected an ancient orbital platform to fire at the weak point. The platform's weapon, designed during the original war, punched through the redistributed shield and carved a trench across the predecessor ship's hull. It was not destroyed, but it was damaged. For the first time, the predecessors realized they were in an actual fight. The enemy fleet's formation changed. Ships spread out, making concentrated fire harder to achieve. They began targeting coalition vessels with precision, taking out the most dangerous ships first. Within minutes, a quarter of the defending fleet was destroyed. Lena felt every death through the network. Thousands of beings dying in explosions and hull breaches. The weight of it threatened to overwhelm her. But Rin was there, sharing the burden, helping her process the grief while maintaining focus. "We need more bonded pairs adding their strength," he said. "The network needs power we cannot provide alone." Lena reached out across the galaxy, calling to every bonded dragon and partner. Some answered immediately. Others hesitated, afraid of what joining the network might mean. A few refused outright, not trusting the ancient technology, but enough responded. 10 pairs, 20, 50. Each one added their unique perspective and abilities to the defense. Through these connections, Lena discovered something crucial. The predecessors' weapons were purely energy-based. They had no physical projectiles, no missiles, nothing solid. Their technology was so advanced it had moved entirely away from material warfare. It was elegant and powerful, but it was also a weakness. "Physical matter," Lena said. "They do not expect it because they have evolved beyond it." She coordinated a new tactic. Coalition ships stopped trying to match the predecessors with energy weapons. Instead, they used kinetic weapons. Railguns firing solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. Missiles filled with explosives rather than exotic energy. Even simple rocks accelerated to high velocity. The predecessor shields were calibrated for energy attacks. They had not been updated in millions of years because nothing in the dormant galaxy had threatened them. Solid matter passed through the shields more easily than it should have. Not completely, but enough to make a difference. The enemy adapted quickly, recalibrating their shields. But that took time and processing power. While they adjusted, they were vulnerable. Lena exploited that vulnerability ruthlessly, coordinating strikes across multiple battle zones. One system would attack with energy weapons, drawing shield adjustments. Another would strike with kinetic weapons while the shields were miscalibrated. It was working. Slowly, painfully, but working. Predecessor ships began taking meaningful damage. 2 were destroyed outright, but the cost was devastating. Coalition losses were 10 times higher. Entire fleets were being wiped out. Colonies were falling despite the desperate defense, and the predecessors kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 3 more entered the galaxy. They had been building their forces in the void for millions of years. This was just their advance fleet. "We cannot win through attrition," Rin said. "We need to strike at their command structure. Cut off the head." Lena focused the network's sensors on the enemy fleet, searching for the command ship. It was not hard to find. The largest vessel, positioned at the rear of the formation, coordinating all others. Destroy it and the enemy would lose cohesion, maybe enough to turn the tide. But reaching it meant getting through dozens of other ships and their combined firepower. No coalition vessel could survive that journey. Even ancient defense platforms would be destroyed before getting close. Unless someone could move through space itself, undetected, fast enough that the enemy could not target them. "I can do it," Rin said quietly. Lena felt his intention through their bond and immediately rejected it. "No, your new wings are untested. We do not know if they can even survive in hard vacuum, let alone get you past enemy ships. They are made of the same energy that powers the network. If the network can exist in space, so can I. Besides, we do not have another option." He was right, and Lena hated it. She hated that after finally finding someone who understood her, after building something beautiful from 2 broken pieces, they had to risk it all. But the galaxy was dying around them. Millions had already perished. Billions more would die if they did nothing. "I am coming with you," she said. "Absolutely not. You need to stay here and coordinate the network. Without you guiding it, the defense falls apart. The other bonded pairs can maintain it. We established enough connections. But you need me on this mission. 2 minds working as one has always been our advantage," they argued, their minds clashing in the shared space of their bond. But they both knew Lena was right. They were stronger together than apart. That had always been true. The ritual had only made it more obvious. Rin spread his wings of starlight. They pulsed with power drawn from the network, from the Heartstone, from the combined will of every bonded pair fighting across the galaxy. Lena climbed onto his back, and for the first time they prepared to fly together. Maintain the network coordination, Lena sent to the other bonded pairs. We are going to end this. Ash's voice came back through the connection, warm and certain. We will hold the line. Go. Finish what our ancestors started. Rin launched himself from the Temple of First Flight. His wings carried them upward with a speed that took both their breaths away. The atmosphere disappeared beneath them, replaced by the cold void of space. But Rin's wings did not falter. They seemed to grow stronger, drawing energy from the quantum field itself. They flew past coalition battlefields, past dying ships and debris fields that had been living beings minutes before. Lena felt every death, but she forced herself to stay focused. Grief was a luxury for after the battle. If there was an after, the predecessor fleet detected them eventually. Energy weapons fired, trying to intercept. Rin dodged with speed and grace that his old physical wings never could have achieved. He moved through space like thought itself. Impossible to track, impossible to hit. His wings left trails of light behind them, beautiful and deadly. They reached the command ship. It was massive beyond comprehension, a construct of technology that seemed to warp reality around it. Weapons platforms covered its surface. Shield generators pulsed with power that could probably deflect anything the Coalition could throw at it. There, Lena said, pointing to a spot where the shields flickered inconsistently. Their power distribution has a flaw. Brief moments where energy drops to channel into weapons. If we time it exactly right, they dove. Rin pushed his new wings to their limit, accelerating to speeds that would have torn his old body apart. But he was something different now, something the ritual had transformed him into. The shield gap opened for a fraction of a second. They passed through. Inside the command ship's shields, they were vulnerable to point defense systems. Hundreds of weapons tracked them. Lena used the network to override nearby Coalition ships, directing them to fire on the command ship from outside. The predecessors had to choose between targeting Rin or managing the external attack. They chose wrong. The moment of hesitation was enough. Rin crashed through the command ship's hull, his claws and wings tearing through metal that should have been impenetrable. They were inside. The ship's interior was alien beyond description. Not designed for beings with bodies, it was all energy flows and data streams made visible. Lena could see the command structure, a consciousness that was partly artificial and partly the merged minds of ancient predecessors. It was trying to adapt to the Coalition's unusual tactics, trying to update millions of years of military doctrine in real time. We disrupt it, Lena said. Feed it chaos it cannot process. Using the network connection, she began sending random data into the command ship's systems. Human literature, dragon philosophy, music from 100 species, art, poetry, emotions and creativity that the logical predecessor mind found incomprehensible. It was not an attack they could defend against because they did not understand it was an attack. The command consciousness fragmented, overwhelmed by input it could not categorize or process. Ship-to-ship coordination began failing. Orders went out that contradicted previous commands. The fleet's perfect formation dissolved into confusion, but the ship itself was fighting back. Defense systems internal to the hull activated. Energy barriers sprang up trying to trap Rin and Lena. Weapons fired from all directions. They had seconds before they were overwhelmed. The core, Rin said. We destroy the core. The ship dies. He spread his wings wide and released a burst of energy that had been building since they entered the ship. Fire mixed with pure light, a combination of dragon heritage and network power. It carved through the ship's internal systems like they were made of paper. But it was not enough. The core was too well protected. They needed more power, power that would drain Rin completely, possibly killing them both. Lena felt his intention and this time did not argue. Some things were worth dying for. Rin gathered every bit of energy from his wings, from his body, from the bond itself. He shaped it into a single point of absolute destruction. Then he drove himself forward, carrying that point directly into the command ship's core. The explosion was visible across half the galaxy. The command ship came apart from within, its energy systems overloading and a cascade failure that spread to nearby vessels. The predecessor fleet, without central coordination, began retreating. Some ships tried to continue fighting, but without the command structure, they were disorganized and vulnerable. Coalition forces pressed the advantage, destroying dozens before the enemy managed to flee back into deep space. In the wreckage of the command ship, Rin floated in vacuum, his body drained, his wings barely glowing. Lena held on to him, sharing her life force again as she had in the scorched veil, giving him strength to survive. They drifted together in the debris field while the battle ended around them. Chancellor Voss's ship found them hours later. They were barely conscious but alive, held together by a bond that even the vacuum of space could not break. Medical teams worked frantically to stabilize them while the network slowly powered down, its job complete. The predecessors were not destroyed, but they were driven back. Without their command ship, their fleet scattered and retreated beyond the galactic rim. They would not return for a long time, if ever. The younger races had proven they could fight and win. The galaxy belonged to them now, not to ancient ghosts. Recovery took weeks. Rin's wings remained, though they dimmed when not in active use. The network went dormant again, waiting for the next crisis millions of years in the future. The Heartstone returned to its resting place, content that it had found worthy partners. Humanity's application for coalition membership was approved unanimously. Even Prelate Nix voted in favor, though he did so quietly and with poor grace. Humans had proven themselves in the most dramatic way possible. They had saved the galaxy through creativity, adaptability, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. 3 years passed. Lena became Earth's ambassador, working to integrate humanity into the broader galactic community. She advocated for peaceful cooperation, but also for the preservation of uniqueness. Humanity did not need to copy other species. Their differences were strengths to be celebrated. Rin found new purpose training young dragons, particularly those who had been injured or who felt incomplete. He taught them that physical perfection was not required for greatness. That bonds were built on mutual respect and sacrifice, not dominance or power. That being broken could be the first step toward becoming something stronger. On quiet evenings, when diplomatic duties were finished and training was done, they would fly together. Rin's wings of starlight carried them beyond atmosphere, into the peaceful void where stars shone cold and clear. They did not need words. The bond said everything necessary. Lena would look out at the galaxy they had saved and feel overwhelming gratitude. For second chances, for finding purpose after loss, for the cranky, impossible, wonderful dragon who had chosen her back when she chose him. Rin would feel her thoughts and send back his own. Gratitude for patience, for someone who saw past scars to the person beneath, for the stubborn human who had walked into his shadow and brought light with her. They were different people than they had been in the Hall of Bonding. Lena had arrived broken and guilty, hiding behind duty. She left confident and purposeful, knowing her mistakes did not define her. Rin had waited in shadows for centuries, convinced his story had ended with Kira's death. He discovered that endings could be beginnings if you were brave enough to try again. The galaxy changed too. Species that had barely tolerated each other learned to cooperate. Humans brought innovation and chaos in equal measure, shaking up established systems that needed shaking. Dragons found renewed purpose as teachers and guardians rather than just weapons. The coalition grew stronger through diversity instead of despite it. Sometimes late at night, Lena would wake from dreams of the battle. She would see the ships exploding, feel the deaths through the network, remember the terrible weight of responsibility. In those moments, Rin was always there. His presence through their bond was steady and certain, reminding her that they had made the right choices even when those choices hurt. Sometimes Rin would dream of falling, of losing his wings again, of being helpless while those he cared about died. In those moments, Lena's consciousness would wrap around his like warm light, showing him that he was not alone and never would be again. They had saved the galaxy, yes, but more importantly, they had saved each other. Two broken beings who chose connection over isolation, who risked everything for each other repeatedly, who proved that the strongest bonds are not built on perfection, but on acceptance of imperfection. Ash visited them one evening, her ancient scales glowing in the twilight. She watched them together and smiled in the way dragons smile. "You have done what many thought impossible," she said. "You have shown that change need not destroy us, that we can become something new while remaining ourselves. The young ones speak of you in reverent tones. They call you legends." "We are not legends," Lena protested. We just did what needed doing. That is what all legends say, Ash replied. But you missed the point. It is not what you did that matters most. It is what you proved. That bonds are choices, not obligations. That strength comes from partnership, not dominance. That even the oldest, grumpiest dragon can find happiness if he is willing to let someone in. Rin snorted flame in mock irritation. I am not that old. You are ancient, Ash said fondly. And also young again in the ways that matter. It is good to see. After she left, Lena and Rin sat together watching the stars emerge. Somewhere out there, the predecessors nursed their wounds and reconsidered their assumptions about younger species. Somewhere closer, humans were building new ships and asking too many questions and making other species alternately impressed and exasperated. And everywhere, bonded pairs were learning that the strongest partnerships were built on choice, trust, and absolute faith in each other. Do you ever regret it? Lena asked quietly. Choosing me instead of waiting longer? Rin was silent for a moment, considering. I regret many things in my life. Chances not taken, words not said. But choosing you? Letting you choose me? That is the one thing I would do again exactly the same way if given the chance. Even knowing what it would cost? Especially knowing that. The best things in life always cost something. The question is whether they are worth the price. You were worth every moment of fear, every sacrifice, every risk we took. Lena leaned against his side, feeling his warmth and the quiet pulse of their bond. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. I want you to know that. I know. I feel it every day through our connection. Just as you know what you mean to me. They sat in comfortable silence as the night deepened around them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Humanity's integration into the coalition was progressing, but not without friction. Dragons were adjusting to their new roles, but old habits died hard. The galaxy was still healing from the war, and there was much work to be done. But tonight, a cranky old dragon with wings of starlight and a stubborn human woman who refused to accept impossibility simply enjoyed being together. They had waited nearly 4 centuries to find each other. They had earned this peace. And if the future brought new threats, new trials, new impossibilities to overcome, they would face them the same way they had faced everything else. Together, bonded by choice, stronger as partners than they could ever be alone. In the Hall of Bonding, young dragons waited for partners who would see them for who they truly were. Some would wait days, some weeks, a few might wait years. But they all knew the story of Rin, the wingless dragon who waited for nearly 4 centuries until the right human chose him. It gave them hope. And hope, they learned, was the most powerful force in the universe, more powerful than ancient weapons or extinct civilizations, more enduring than time itself. Because hope is what makes beings reach out to each other across impossible divides. Hope is what turns strangers into partners and partners into legends. Hope is what allows the broken to heal and the lost to find their way home. And sometimes, if you are very fortunate, hope takes the form of someone who looks at your scars and sees strength. Someone who knows your worst moments and chooses to stay anyway. Someone who fits with you so perfectly that even the universe seems to approve. For Rin and Lena, that hope had been worth the wait. Worth every moment of loneliness that came before. Worth the trials and dangers and sacrifices that followed. They had found each other in the shadows of the Hall of Bonding. They had saved the galaxy together. But their greatest achievement was simpler and more profound. They had proven that even after loss, after centuries of waiting, after accepting that happiness might never come again, it is still possible to find joy if you are brave enough to choose it. The stars shone overhead, ancient and eternal, and beneath them a dragon and his human partner sat together, content in the knowledge that they had found what so many spend lifetimes searching for, a true equal, a perfect balance, a bond that transcended species and time and expectation. The cranky wingless dragon had waited nearly 4 centuries, but in the end it had been worth every single moment,